Today marked an important legal deadline for former President Donald Trump in the case charging him with plotting to overturn the 2020 election. Last week, a federal appeals court rejected Trump's immunity claims and ruled the trial in U.S. District Court should proceed. That court gave him until today to file an emergency appeal with the U.S. Supreme Court. The Supreme Court could reject the emergency appeal, allowing the trial to begin or extend the delay while it hears arguments on the immunity issue. The justice's decision on the appeal will likely determine whether the trial happens before the November election. And joining us now is Derek Muller, law professor at the University of Notre Dame and nationally recognized scholar in the area of election law. Derek, good to have you back on the show. We appreciate it. As mentioned, today was the deadline for former President Trump to file his appeal to the Supreme Court. For those not familiar with the appeals process, how exactly does it work and how long could it take in this particular case?
Sure. So this is a little bit more of a complicated two-step process. The first step is to ask for a stay of the mandate. That is, the D.C. Circuit had a mandate saying that the trial court can continue, the prosecution can continue. And the first request is to ask the Supreme Court to stay that, to freeze that lower court decision and hold everything in place while the Supreme Court hears that second step, the petition for writ of certiorari or the appeals process itself. So that goal today is sort of essentially to freeze things in place. And that's the request that's being put in front of the Supreme Court today. So we'll see what the Supreme Court does with that request. But, their decision here could be make or break moment for Trump.
Derek, what happens if the court denies the appeal?
Right. So if the court denies it, then that is essentially saying the trial court and the criminal process can continue to play out as it has been playing out before. That means the immunity claim was denied and the Supreme Court has no interest in freezing that decision. Instead, the case will go back to the trial court and it will proceed. And so there was a March 4th scheduled date for the beginning of some of these proceedings. There's a chance those things could get pushed out later, depending on how long the court takes here. But there's no question that a denial would be a huge loss for Trump and a move into the criminal process.
Yeah, and what about the timing of all this and the potential impact that it could have on the election? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, the Supreme Court is juggling a lot of things right now. It just heard arguments last week in whether or not Trump's name can appear on the ballot in Colorado in the primary process. It's now facing this question, which is sort of a make or break moment for his criminal prosecution. And obviously, a criminal prosecution that goes to trial in March could have an effect or ripple effect in the presidential primaries and through the nominating convention. So the Supreme Court is going to feel pressed to act as quickly as it can. So I think there's going to be an intense pressure to decide this month whether or not it wants to take the case. But remember, this is just asking for that sort of first step, a stay of mandate, just asking whether or not to freeze things below. And the Supreme Court might not have to give a long list of reasons for that. It might not have to explain itself. It just might summarily affirm or deny. Maybe some justices would write separately, but the denial would certainly result in things moving very quickly from here on out.
We have about a minute or so left here, Derek. But quickly, former President Trump isn't the only presidential candidate facing some issues. Late last week, a special counsel's report concluded criminal charges were not warranted against President Biden for his handling of classified documents. However, that report did question his mental acuity and also described him as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. While no candidate we know is not without challenges, it seems both of the frontrunners here have a myriad of issues. Have we ever seen anything like this before in an election cycle? And how much do you think these issues matter to voters?
Well, the first is I think these matters matter a lot to voters. If you see the polling, questions about the candidate's age and mental fitness, questions about whether or not a candidate could be criminally prosecuted or found guilty at a criminal trial are major issues for the public. So this is a precarious moment for American democracy. We've never had candidates this old before running for president. We've never had candidates who are facing criminal charges who are continuing in this part of the political process. So we're at a pretty precarious moment as we think about the 2024 presidential election. We haven't had primaries that have been robust in terms of competition from the candidates. The voters in the party seem content with their choices right now, even if the American public as a whole may not be. So we're heading into 2024 with, I think, a lot of dissatisfaction, which is an unfortunate place for us to be.
And we're going to leave it right there. Derek, always great to be with you. Thank you so much for your insights. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.